Let's be real. That first time you have to manage your own money, it can feel like you've been tossed into the deep end of a pool, right? You've got budgeting, saving, debt. It's just a lot to handle. And if you're a student, you're trying to juggle all of that on top of classes, maybe a job. So you have to wonder, how are today's students actually doing with all this?
Well, let's put a big number on that feeling of stress. A major study from Ohio State University found that 70%, that's 7 out of 10 college students, feel stressed about their personal finances. That is a huge majority, and it tells you this isn't just a few people worrying. It's practically a universal experience.
So what's actually happening behind that big, scary number? To get a better idea, we're going to dive into a really fascinating piece of research. Back in 2021, a group of students at Stony Brook University decided, hey, let's look into this ourselves, and they surveyed their own peers. This gives us a really authentic, on-the-ground look at student finances.
And the work these students did is the foundation for this whole explainer. You got to give credit where it's due, so a huge shout out to Ramanjot, Divya, Melissa, and Tyler for putting this incredible survey together. They really wanted to connect the dots between students' money habits, who they were, and what they actually knew about finance.
So, how'd they do it? Well, they kept it pretty simple and really effective. It was an anonymous online survey, and they got 142 students to complete it. The 20 questions they asked were super smart. They covered the basics, who the students were, demographics, what they were actually doing with their money, and then a pop quiz on basic financial literacy.
Okay, so before we get to the juicy findings, it's super important to know who we're talking about here. I mean, the background of the people taking a survey can tell you a whole lot about the results.
And right off the bat, here's a really key detail. More than 80% of the students who answered were full-time. So for the most part, we're hearing from people who are completely immersed in that university life, which is a really important lens for understanding their financial situations.
All right, let's get to the main event. What did this survey actually uncover about how these students are saving, how they're handling debt, and what they think about investing? Let's unpack these core findings.
And we kicked things off with some pretty good news. When the students were asked if they had a savings account, a huge majority said yes. Honestly, that's a fantastic first step. It shows that the basic habit of putting money aside is already there for most of them.
And things get even more interesting when you look at investing. Get this, the Stony Brook students in the survey were actually investing at a higher rate than the national average for people under 35, which is only about 41%. So wow, they're not just saving, they're already taking steps to try and grow their money.
But that brings up a really important question, doesn't it? If these students are already ahead of the curve, saving and investing more than their peers across the country, what's the catch? What's stopping them from taking it to the next level?
And here is the answer, loud and clear. The number one thing holding them back by a long shot was just a lack of funds. It wasn't that they weren't interested, it wasn't that they didn't know how, they just didn't have the extra cash. And right behind that, the heavy weight of credit card debt and student loans.
So, when you put all these pieces together, you've got good habits on one side, but these really serious roadblocks on the other. What's the final grade? What's the main takeaway on the financial literacy of these students?
So here's the big reveal. The students in this survey actually scored higher on financial literacy questions than both the state and national averages. But, and this is a really big but, the researchers themselves pointed out that a lot of the respondents were business and finance majors. So of course they'd score higher. They were literally studying this stuff, which probably skewed the results a bit. And that leads us to the study's ultimate conclusion, their single biggest recommendation. They said it loud and clear. If you want to create real change for all students, not just the ones who decide to major in finance, the education has to start way, way earlier. At the end of the day, this survey is so much more than just data points. It's really a mirror, reflecting the kind of money challenges and opportunities that we all face. Learning about money is a personal journey, so it leaves us with something to think about. What's the single most important money lesson that you've ever learned?